Okay. A good, I guess, technical evening to everyone. I apologize. I'm running late, but I'm almost certain it's just me to the party, so I'm only offending myself, really. I'm trying to go somewhere on this thing real quick so I can share my link because one of the things that I always like forget to do during this live stream is to be very open about my own personal needs. Not too long ago, a friend of mine told me about a site called coffee.com. And as a freelancing artist now going on, this is my now going on my third full year freelancing. Um, it's been a struggle, and I'm kind of in a position now where I'm able to, well, not able to. I have dealt with my own personal pride and started to ask for help. And coffee.com is a really cool way where people can just literally just donate just a couple of dollars here or there at their leisure um, for coffee, really. It's so funny because completely unrelated to what we'll be doing today during this live stream. Um, I find it so funny. My mother used to call money that you kind of saved for later rainy day money. And now it's so funny that I call it coffee money almost now. Like it's just something you kind of put aside for yourself. So I don't know why I can't copy this link. It is like, ugh. Okay, let me just go to that and then I'll try and copy it over. Anyway, just to make sure the video is going okay. Okay, it is going okay. My head is low. Okay. Hopefully everyone is doing okay today. Whenever they're able to check in or anything like that. Um, it would seem that during these consistency streams, as I continue practicing, um, my job is just to be ready and here online for support as we read these kind of things together. So I'll typically just wait about, I would say, 10 or so minutes. I try to wait until there's about 3 people present before I start reading. And if no one shows up, I'll just usually cut it short, just to kind of save time. It just depends on how it runs. Sorry, a little curl over here being crazy. But anyway, I wanted to share a link here. How do I paste using this? Oh, like this. Gosh, this is so annoying. Why doesn't it just copy the whole thing? Why are you like this? Yes. Yes, like that. um, okay. So there's my coffee link, which I was speaking about earlier. So let me just adjust this so it's sitting correctly. Hopefully my thing doesn't flop over. Sometimes it falls over, and I don't really know why it does, but it just does. So, um, with all that being said, hopefully anyone who tunes into this whenever they come through is having a great Sunday. For me, it's been peaceful and quiet, super reflective. I've gotten work done. I've gotten some stuff organized for the new week ahead. I've got important deadlines ahead, but also extremely exciting finish lines to cross, and um, hair goals are being achieved as I am just excited about these 2-strand twists. But in general, I guess I'm always a little bit geeked about a new hairstyle. It's just something weird about me um, that I'm learning to embrace more, especially as my hair grows out. So I suppose as I sit here and think, natural hair, right? Natural hair is an interesting thing. It's a journey once a woman decides to take it on. Um, And I mean it from my perspective as a Black woman, but I also mean it from the perspective of any person who has had to struggle with their natural hair. And that's actually not a racial thing. I know plenty of white women who have curly hair who resisted their hair for years. And I can't equate their struggle to mine, but I do understand and understand what it's like to hate my hair. And now I love my hair. So, for any woman who has transitioned from tons and tons of products to more natural or healthier ways of caring for the hair, bless you. I've been there. I've been there. I am there. I am excited about the progress. And Yeah, weird, but yeah, but I'm take. But anyway, as the new week is sitting ahead, I hope that we're all able to set intentions for ourselves and able to keep true to them. I feel like Sunday is more often than not now that day for me. So I'm excited that now that I'm able to organize my time a bit better, I can start other things. I'm sorry, will start to fall into place. I feel like I'm sitting super low, but maybe it's just me. But anyway, pardon me. Um, so similar to hopefully last week, I hope to stay on for up to 45 minutes, but at the very least, I'll stay on for about 20 if it's just me. Um, I really find myself extremely drawn to the idea of pushing for a larger YouTube presence as the fall comes. My When I look back at what I've done or what I've produced to put on YouTube, it's lacking and it's not consistent. And I'm looking forward to picking how I'd like to proceed, and committing to it. If anyone knows me from Instagram ever, which I'll definitely start trying to talk about more in the future once I have like more people showing up, I guess. But my Instagram is called Art Party, ALA dot art party. And like I've always liked the idea of letting my ideas shift and move because I have so many incomplete stories in my head as well as complete ones. But my style was just shifting for a long time because I just didn't know what to choose. And it's so weird now because I've gone through a phase where I drew strictly like anime style, big expressive eyes, tiny nose. I did that, and I kind of stayed there for a long time and just tried to perfect the body more so than the face. But it wasn't really until like these last 2 years complete that like I was really starting to capture different kinds of features in people's faces. Like I tried not to focus on race, even though when I write, I seem to focus more on it in my fictional writing. So it was like, why am I not trying to capture our features? So yeah, it's really nice now to be able to do that and to be able to be getting better at it every day. Um, Well, that being said, I've noticed that as an artist, it sort of has alienated me from clientele who are not black or brown. Um, and I would really like to change that. I don't understand how come when a person starts to show kind of pro black tendencies in their works, that somehow automatically means anti whiteness. And I don't know why it comes across that way. Pro black is not anti white. And I'm not trying to make this political or anything. I want to get off this very quickly, but I'm just a little bit frustrated because I really do want to have reasons to draw all kinds of families, mixed, white, black, brown, caramel, beige. And it's just like, I feel like I hope that as the years progress with my growing digital skills, and really portfolio building, I guess, um, I really hope I can have a wider clientele. I don't really talk about this a whole lot, but while I'm waiting for hopefully some people to pop up, um, I am very happy that at least I can serve people who are me. And lately, at least for the last year and a half or so, majority of my clientele has been Black women. And it's kind of it holds a mirror up to myself that Black women come to a Black woman to get their art done. And that feels really good to know that I'm serving sisters and mothers and aunties and play cousins. Like, I'm serving my people. With that being said, it's like I'm pushing myself in this new season as fall comes to start drawing my brothers and to start building on my male understanding. This is actually really an odd thing, but despite all my classical training, I've only really like drawn maybe one or two male nude bodies, and most of the other types of like male studying I've done to try and create my idea of men for my own worlds has been just studying anime and manga artist styles. And um I don't know why. I always just kind of struggled with the male physique. And actually, in my teen years, I really liked pretty boys. Um, don't know why. It's just they were just suave somehow. And well, as someone who really loves Prince, I would naturally kind of go through my pretty boy phase. Um, but I don't know. It's all a matter of aesthetics, really. But challenging myself to surround myself more with male voices, male perspectives, so I can start drawing men and making more realistic men in both my writing and my artworks. It's been a personal challenge. Um, and I think it's also tied to my own need to challenge my own biases. And that's been a huge part of my 2021. So, hello, person who just joined. Hello. We're getting ready to jump into the reading here in a couple minutes. Keeping my throat coated real quick, and for some reason wandered onto my adoration for Prince. Woo, Lord, rest him. Woo. Oh, hey, thanks for pulling up. I'm just in a Prince mood. You know what? I think when this live is over, I know what I'm listening to while I'm working. I know what I just decided. Anyway, completely off topic. Fourth. Hey, I've been really trying to use my live stream times on my Facebook and here to just give a little bit of joy and hopefully a little bit of healing and self realization. I've been going through a lot of reflection, so been hoping I can share that with some people. And to be honest, there are some Black women on YouTube right now just dropping some truth. And I'm not saying I'm one of them. I'm just saying that, like, to see them be bold and say, you know what, I know it's controversial, but this is my thought. I'm like, well, if they can do it, why can't I? Now, I might not be just like them. I'm not going to do it just like them, but I am going to share things from books that touched me and changed me. So, therefore, hopefully, other people will be changed. But with that being said, I should probably, I don't even know if I can really quickly recap what we did last week just because it was so full. But I know it's available within my page somewhere. Maybe like within the latter 20 minutes of it is the reading. So It's full, but it's nice. This book is from 1990, so it's over 30 years old, but it is still pretty relevant and applicable. So, and if you know anybody who needs a little bit of help and needs a little bit of like, let me sit with this for a second, feel free to share this link or let them know about my coffee link in the chat. I accept coffees. Every penny counts. So, to save on time, we're at 15 minutes in now. So let me go on and get started because I can start going on in circles and I don't need much coaxing, unfortunately. So to try and stay on time, let me go on and get started. So today we're jumping into a section in the book, which I'm not sure if it comes across backwards on YouTube. I forgot if it does or not. So this section is called Soul and Spirit, Individual Consciousness or One Mind. If anything hits me real hard, I might pause and reflect, but it's dense. So I'm going to try and keep it pushing because school teacher Arnold has to push through. All right. The word psychology derives from the Greek psyche and logos and means study of the soul. But psychology has traditionally concerned itself with study of the mind. The original separation of medicine and then psychology from the study of the soul stemmed from the necessity of healers to avoid conflicts with beliefs held by the early Christian church. For example, Christian orthodoxy strictly forbade dissection of the human body, and so the great medical schools of the Middle Ages were located in Persia, where Islam and Judaism tolerated it. At a time when death in Persia, at a time when death for hearsay and witchcraft was a common punishment in Christian Europe, scientists and physicians quickly learned to leave the soul to theologians, lest they be denounced as witches or devils in their practice of the healing arts. Physicians became technicians of the body, psychologists, technicians of the mind, and clergy, the sometimes jealous keepers of the soul. This artificial separation of mind, body, and spirit reached its fullest expression in the 20th century. Dr. Larry Dossey, a physician, lecturer, and writer, refers to the practice of medicine over the past 100 years as Era One, or materialistic medicine, in which, and she goes into a quote, the emphasis is on the material body, which is viewed largely as a complex machine. Era 1 medicine is guided by the laws of energy and matter laid down by Newton 300 years ago. According to this perspective, the universe and all in it, including the body, are a vast clockwork functioning according to deterministic principles. The effects of mind and consciousness are absent, and all forms of therapy must be physical in nature: drugs, surgery, eradication, etc. And I think the book is called Recovering the Soul. She goes on to say, Era 1 medicine has unquestionably improved the quality and length of life. After all, vitamins are a relatively recent discovery, as were antibiotics, which came into use only at the time of the Second World War. Without them, many of us would not be alive today. Technological advances in surgery and pharmacology have been truly incredible. As I sometimes joke, I would hate to have had to meditate my nose back into my face after the accident. I'm deeply grateful to my surgeon's skills, to the technology that supported it. About 20 years ago, however, the limitations of Era 1 medicine began to become apparent. As miraculous as its achievements were, they often proved insufficient. Patient statistics showed that up to 90% of the reason for visits to the family doctor were for stress or anxiety-related problems. While pills might provide temporary relief, they were merely band-aids, since the real cause of the illness wasn't addressed. This wasn't exactly, this was exactly the problem I experienced 2 decades ago when I sought help for my headaches, stomach pain, high blood pressure, and chronic bronchitis. Pills provided only limited relief. It wasn't until I began to use a mind-body approach that I relied on powerful meditation and imagery techniques, combined with insight into the attitudes that put my body out of balance to begin with, that I began to heal. The scientific research of the last 20 years is replete with examples of mind body interactions. If our hospital room looks out on a tree, we heal faster than if it faces a brick wall. If we are lonely, our immune systems and our hearts suffer. Men who smoke are more likely to die sooner if divorced, widowed, or single than if they're married. This research suggests that the mind and body are not separate entities, but a single unit. The body mind, which responds physically as well as emotionally to the presence of other body minds and to nature itself. Dossi calls the advent of the body mind medicine, used in conjunction with appropriate mechanistic approaches, Era 2 medicine. But even Era 2 medicine has inherent limitations because it is based on the concept of an isolated body mind unit, a single consciousness residing in a single body, which may be influenced by, but is inherently unconnected to, any other source of consciousness. Consciousness, or mind, is assumed to be a function of the brain. When the brain dies, so does consciousness. I had occasion to doubt this assumption many years ago when I sat with a young woman who was dying. Her name was Sally, and she had been living with a rapidly growing and rare rectal cancer for the year or so that we knew each other. We worked on meditation and imagery techniques that helped relieve treatment side effects and brought Sally some peace. We talked of emotions, finishing old business, forgiveness, and grieving. We also talked about Sally's concept of death, which was the Era 1 perspective, that consciousness died with the brain rather than surviving in any way beyond the body. When the day of Sally's death came, I was visiting her in the hospital. I was scared because I'd never been with a dying person before and didn't have any notion of what to expect. Her parents had gone off to have lunch when I came, so I had about 45 minutes to sit alone with Sally. To my great relief, she seemed comfortable as she drifted in and out of consciousness. We just sat together in silence. Then, after a while, I screwed up all my courage and asked, "Where do you drift off to, Sally? Your face looks so peaceful." She opened her eyes and turned to look at me. Her eyes were full of love and wonder. In a tiny, soft, and very amused voice, she said, "Well, you may have trouble believing this, but I've been floating around, touring the hospital. I've just been in the cafeteria watching my parents eat lunch. Dad is having grilled cheese. Mom's eating tuna. They're so sad that they can barely eat. I will have to tell them that my body may be dying, but I'm certainly not. It's more like I'm being born. My consciousness is so free and peaceful." Sally faded out for a while, and when she came back, she told me, "It's so beautiful, Joan. I'm drifting up out of my body toward a kind of living light. It's very bright, so warm, so loving." She squeezed my hand a little. "Don't be afraid to die," she said, looking at me with so much kindness. "Your soul doesn't die at all, you know? It just goes home. It just goes on from here." That moment of looking into Sally's eyes as she shared the beginning of her soul's journey out of her physical body held a special magic for me. Excuse me, there's a tickle in my nose. It is one of the highlights of my life. Sally's experience that her individual consciousness or soul was not bound to her body lies at the core of most spiritual traditions. The purpose of spiritual life is to recollect that our seemingly separate soul is not separate at all, but part of a greater spirit. In the poet, in the poet Khalil Gibran's words, one of the sons and daughters of the life's longing for itself. In that realization, that remembrance of its one self with the source of life, the soul is mended, healed from its temporal sorrows as it remembers its true identity as wisdom, consciousness, and love. The personal experiences of people like Sally, which we will discuss in greater depth in part two, have begun a revolution in thinking that has challenged the most dearly held tenets of medicine, psychology, and religion. Data from well controlled scientific studies further challenged our assumptions about the nature of mind and how we can affect one another through shared consciousness. Cardiologist Randolph Beard, for example, demonstrated that patients admitted to the coronary intensive care unit with heart attacks fared significantly better medically if they were prayed for than if they were not. Since patients in Beard's studies were randomly assigned to either the prayed for or non prayed for group, and neither staff nor patients knew which group they were in, the results could not be accounted for by suggestion. In a similar vein, data from more than 30 studies conducted by scientists studying transcendental meditation revealed a significant decrease in crime and violence in cities where 1% or more of the population were meditators. How is it that our minds can affect one another at a distance? The mechanistic concept of one mind and one body that has informed medicine and psychology for the last century cannot explain such phenomena. Dossi suggests that the medicine of the future, Era 3 medicine, will include the spiritual dimension that recognizes the greater mind of which we are all a part. Prayer and meditation are most fully utilized not only as techniques to promote physical healing, but also as a means of rediscovering our connection with that greater mind. This deeper healing encompasses the perennial questions: what is the meaning of life? Who am I? What is consciousness? What is divinity? What is a human life well lived? Medicine, psychology, and spirituality intersect, and the answers to these questions, which have traditionally been the purview of religion. Religion, as we'll consider in Chapter 7, has been deeply influenced by, and in some cases corrupted by, worldviews based on guilt. Is that the end of the section? Yo, I was up in there. Okay. Huh. Okay. Well, so interesting to this is like the second time I've reread this section because as I covered in my last stream, I'm about if you I'm not sure if you can see that bookmark. I'm about halfway through this book. And even as I'm recombing through it, just like re getting I don't know what the word I'm looking for, getting smacked again by the nuggets of knowledge in here. And like she's not even done yet. I kind of want to read this next section just because it's not that long, and the next section is definitely longer. So I think if I continue on, I might be able to complete it for myself. But if any words in there hit you, please take it with you, and what you don't need, please leave it behind. Let me before I continue, I just want to see if there's anything in there I just wanted to take with me real quick. I guess as I'm thinking about what we're going through with Corona, it's so interesting to see how everyone's dealing with it in their own way within their own home bubble. And yeah, I do kind of believe there is kind of a spiritual awakening going on. Um, I think for some people it is for the better. I think for other people it could be for the worse, especially if they're being led astray. And that's why it's really important that people get a balance of voices. And that's why I can't be afraid to use my voice. It takes so long to gain enough life experience to start discerning things for yourself and to start listening when people are just trying to say what feels good or trying to say something that tickles your ears. Like, I think everyone is supposed to go through a season, hopefully in their youth, their teens, where they have to learn, okay, this person lied to me and I got to learn how to do better. But I also know we get stuck in patterns and cycles with people who are in different bodies but the same spirit. Like, there's a lot of things that we have to go through as we grow through this life. So yeah. Whew. Anyway, let me just say I'm glad that I'm grown because there's really I am happy for the life I've lived. I'm so grateful. But I don't want to live any of it again. There's so many people who are like, let me be a child again. I'm like, I mean, in the sense I didn't have to pay bills, sure, but okay. Um, I don't know. I'll take everything I know now. It's so much better than what I didn't know as a kid because every child is a dumbass. Like I don't, they're sweet. They're sweet children, but they're so smart and they're so dumb and they're so silly. And they're supposed to be. They're children. I just if every child had a chance to be a child, the world would be a better place. Oh, nice. Out of body experience not limited to those facing death. I've heard that before too. And I know people dream dreams as well. My mama has always told me, she's like, listen to your dreams. What did you dream this week? And I definitely dreamt more in my 20s, but I think now that I'm drawing a lot more, I've been dreaming less, but I hear from God more throughout the day, ironically. So I don't know. I'll take the trade for now. Maybe it's just the season I'm in, but you know how it is. Um, but with that being said, we're gonna push on into the next section because I think I have just enough time to go ahead and read it before I should be signing off. But yeah, some thick reading. So please take what you need. Please take what you need. All right. Let me get on here. Oh, let me just always when you're reading, have something to drink. Ugh. I got some coconut milk mixed with almond milk here. Keeps your throat coated. But also for people who read at home, I know people are into Audible and stuff, but if you ever have time, just read out loud by yourself. It feels good. It actually feels good. Um, I don't know why, and maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just speaking to myself. All right, let me read this section. I'm losing time. I'm losing time. All right. Spiritual or religious? Here, I would like to make an important distinction between religion and spirituality. For me, the difference is best expressed in the following comment by a good friend of mine, physician and psychotherapist Rachel Naomi Remen. She says, the spiritual is not the religious. A religion is a dogma, a set of beliefs about the spiritual, and a set of practices which rise out of those beliefs. There are many religions, and they tend to be mutually exclusive. That is, every religion tends to think that it has dibs on the spiritual, and that it's the way. Yet, the spiritual is inclusive. It is the deepest sense of belonging and participation. One might say that the spiritual is that realm of human experience which religion attempts to connect us to through dogma and practice. Sometimes it succeeds and sometimes it fails. Religion is a bridge to the spiritual, but the spiritual lies beyond religion. Anyway, the writer goes on to say, religions that most easily reconnect us to the divine are based on a psychology and philosophy of spiritual optimism that we will consider closely later in this book. Religions that try to control us by generating fear that we are evil, that we may lose our souls, and that they and that they or the particular manifestation of spirit that they worship can save us, create spiritual pessimism that feeds fear, soul sickness, unworthiness, and guilt. These beliefs are dangerous to our psychological and physical health. Although medicine and psychology have steered clear of religion for most of the last 2,000 years, I believe it is time we reunite them in order to promote a new psychology of spiritual optimism that will be a true healer of body, mind, and soul. An excellent example of how spirituality can intersect with medicine on the common ground of guilt presented itself to me at the Mind Body Clinic. During my tenure there, I worked with a 37-year-old patient named Bob who continued to suffer from severe migraines even though he had extensive changes in his even though he had made extensive changes in his life. Meditating at least 3 times a week and running several miles a day, he had given up alcohol, sugar, caffeine, and the occasional marijuana he smoked. I admired his discipline and responsibility, but still the headaches remained a problem. Something was missing. I finally asked Bob, what do you think the meaning of life is? Fascinated and thoughtful, Bob promptly turned to religion. He had been raised by strict and rigidly Catholic parents who were terrified of sin and talked about God as a fearsome judge. The confessional was particularly traumatic to Bob because he felt threatened rather than relieved as he reviewed his sinful deeds before a priest. He had questioned and finally rejected his childhood religious upbringing years before I met him. Nonetheless, he told me he still believed deeply in some kind of higher power, although he didn't think much about it. As he described this higher power, it emerged as a kind of malevolent Santa Claus who rewarded good behavior and punished bad. Bob had left his childhood religion behind, but clearly it had never left him. Bob characterized himself as a recovering Catholic. Although many people raised in Catholicism have had positive, loving experiences, Bob did not. The combination of his parents' attitude, the strictness of the nuns who ran his parochial school, and the church's emphasis on hell and damnation during his childhood were devastating to Bob's self esteem. We might even call Bob a victim of spiritual abuse. Like any type of abuse, Bob's strict and limiting religious upbringing produced the same helpless, pessimistic attitude that characterizes unhealthy guilt. In our sessions together, Bob described for me his ability to ruin just about anything: his marriage, his sales record at work, which was unusually excellent, but like all things, could not be perfect all the time, even his children, who weren't doing well enough in school. Everything was all his fault and hopeless. That was the story of his life. While his unfulfilling life may not have been the direct result of divine punishment, Bob figured it was at least the result of divine neglect. Grace had abandoned him while making its rounds. Bob's Bob's psychological pessimism, then, was compounded by his spiritual pessimism. Realizing this, I came to believe that Bob's physical healing would not be complete until he was reconnected to his own inner core of peace and worthiness. His soul was effectively separated from its source, which is capitalized. So I sent Bob to a priest who embodied the philosophy of spiritual optimism. The premise of this philosophy is that human beings are by nature good, a part of divine consciousness, not bad and in need of redemption. When Bob began to think of himself as good, worthy of his own love, and in eternal connection to a larger source of love, peace, and wisdom, his headaches finally stopped. And that is the end of that section. Excuse me. So I feel like that's actually something that people don't always address is the kind of physical manifestation of guilt in the body. I feel like as a child, I was kind of shown that a lot of unresolved guilt in my elders turned into, like, I don't want to say dementia, but definitely it became talking points of my elders who began to lose their memories, the things that they did that they felt the guiltiest about. So I don't know how old I was when I realized that guilt was such a strong emotion, but I also don't know how old I was when I was first exposed to being guilty of something. All children have done things that they don't feel the greatest about. And it does really start with the parent. And uh, I don't know if I can say a whole lot about my own upbringing because I did deserve I did deserve a lot of the ass whoopings I got. But you learn things as a child, and not everything that we inherited that we felt guilty for as kids was actually things we should have felt guilty for. For instance, like issues with our bodies. Like I don't I actually I know that, weight is a little bit out of control in the US. Okay, not a little bit, but out of control. But no child, no matter their size, should feel ashamed of their body. Like childhood and prepubescence and puberty are hard enough. Like it's just to go in that early. And I'm actually I was a bigger kid, but I actually wasn't bullied a whole lot. I actually think it was because I was in the suburbs and I was smart. So people just didn't really mess with me. and I was fortunate. My weight protected me, ironically. I'm not sure if everyone can say that. I have a very unique story. But with that being said, there's just too many people living with unresolved guilt. But I do adore, in fact, that this authoress, Joan Borisenko, tells us that those guilts that we face actually teach us things, and that as soon as we go to them and ask them what they're trying to teach us, we can be delivered and healed from it. And I believe in a God who heals. I don't ever won't ever think that everyone who sees the things that I post assume that they believe the same things that I do. But I do hope that any and every person, no matter their creed or their belief, can be relieved of guilt, because it takes your mind away. It takes your spirit, it takes your joy. Um, and I just know too many people who maybe spiraled into a bit of bitterness before they really started to deal with it. And it's just like, it's never too late to start, you know? It could be any age. You really can. But, I also know the older we get, the more stubborn we get. So I figure let me tackle some of this stuff in my 30s. So I'm not sure if there's much to recap here besides Bob, pardon me, tackling his headaches. But I'm certain he's not the only person who has had physical manifestations of his guilt in his body. Um, and I look forward to continuing on in this life and hearing more stories about how people's own bodies are telling them, help me. People aren't as tuned into themselves as they ought to be. I really hope that hopefully as the pandemic ends, but as it continues or it's ongoing or whatever it is, people are working on themselves. Like 2020 brought us all at least a touch closer to death. So I would like to think that people are starting to really look at themselves a bit more. Like, this is a life of countless decisions, but at the end of it, you still have to be accountable for all of them. Um, Boom. So, next week, and as I continue these consistency sort of meditations, I will continue on. It looks like into a section called "Unhealthy Guilt as Soul Sickness," um, which I'm sure is going to dive into more of the ways that guilty feelings can destroy your heart if you let it. And that's just really what's. Can I just be somebody on the internet that says I don't want that for anybody? I know that there are some really messed up, wicked people, but like if they could just, oh, the sweetness of deliverance and the goodness of feeling free of something that was around you or bound around you is just unlike any other. But there's just so many people who also don't know they're blind to something, and half of it is knowing you need help. I don't know. Let me stop. Let me stop. I'll go on a whole other hour talking about that. And I'm not trying to be on a soapbox. But as I continue pushing myself to do these lives here on YouTube and diving deeper into this book, as long as there's at least a small demand for it, um, I'm just happy to be going down this journey, and watching whatever growth I can experience in myself and others. I just want to be a part of that process, I guess. But also in the near future, hopefully as soon as the first week of August. Oh, hold on, let me finish my last. As soon as the first week of August, I'm going to start cutting these together so that if any of the streams are missed, you can still catch the segment that I read, at least, even if there's a couple of breaks or something or things in between. Read this beautiful lesson. This live really touched me. My lesson was hard as I was labeled as touched. Oh, I was young and talked to God. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for sharing that. Like, that's what this is here for. And I do the same thing too during my healing hours on Facebook as well. Except I'm reading a different book called A Woman of Wisdom. So like I don't know. I feel like if we live our lives going, if I could just touch one person. And yeah, we live in the time of corona, even though we're getting better, where we can't maybe physically touch everybody, but just touch one person or read one person. Yeah, I'm so glad. Like that really means the world to me. Like I literally do these lives for just a moment like that. Like you don't understand. So I'm glad to be a part of it. I'm glad to be a vessel. That's what my mom always taught me to say. Sorry, there's a gnat in my face. Not right now, Nat. So, but yes, in the future, I'll definitely make sure I cut these together so that more lessons can be gleaned from these segments. And I have other books around here as well that as I start to comb through them, I would love to start sharing them on these streams. I have a future stream coming up, hopefully in September, where I'm hoping to read a book straight through that's called Women, God, and Food. I might be saying the title in the wrong order, but it's a pretty short read. So I figured I'll challenge myself to do a straight live, just reading it to whoever will come and listen. And um, if I'm honest too, before I even sign off of this live, I think there is such a power in sitting under someone and listening to them read. And I have loved it since I was a child. And when I became a teacher in Japan for the season that I did it and got to do it, I was like, oh my God, I love this. Um, and though I know YouTube and Facebook and live streams, like even if I stretch out to Twitch someday, it's not the same as being able to sit down and read a storybook to people, but it really hits home to me in a very special way because there are so many jewels hidden in books, and we're not really encouraged to read as much as we used to be, and that's scary. I have a brother who's going to be 20 soon, and I'm just like, he loves to read, like, and watching him like still be someone in his generation and be like tearing through books. I'm like, yo, what is my excuse? Oh, child. So anyway, when you see someone that you helped raise putting a little fire under your ass to start being like, you know what, let me start using my let me, you know what, let me do a thing. Let me start doing something. So um I'll go ahead and sign off with just a couple of encouraging words. This week I'm personally racing towards some deadlines in my freelancing work. So I hope that as I race towards my deadlines, the deadlines in your life are ones that you're able to meet and crush, preferably as early as possible. But um, pace yourself. It's so easy to think that you can just sprint the whole way, but just don't. Just don't. Just don't do that. Um, Life is short, but it's also long enough to take your time. Um, and if you take your time, you'll notice that when you do, you'll run into somebody or something will happen along the way that you would have missed because you were rushing past it if you had been sprinting. So please take some time to take it easy on yourself. I say that because I must do the same. And I always try to challenge people to do something that I am challenging myself to do. So I hope this week is full of blessings. I hope it's a reservoir of newness, especially now as summer is in full swing and it's been beautiful, at least where I'm at. So I hope where you're at, you're enjoying beautiful weather and ice cream. Beautiful weather and ice cream. So, anyway, I'll send y'all all off with that. Please come back again next week, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for the next section in this hefty book. And whether and if I see you again, be blessed either way. But yeah, until then, stay sweet, as the peoples used to say, and be decent. Just be decent. Okay.